Sonic the Hedgehog 2 is one of the most famous games in the whole Sonic series. Ever since it was first released, almost everyone who's a fan of 2D platformers considers it an incredible experience. But you may be wondering, does the game still hold up over 30 years later? Is it really one of Sonic's best games? Well, let's dive right in to figure out the answer. This game was greenlit after Sonic 1 was a massive success for Sega. The developers were given a deadline of 1992's holiday season. I forgot to mention this before, but the devs behind Sonic 1 were called Sonic Team. They would split up for the sequel, with Naoto Oshima working on Sonic CD and others like Yuji Naka working on Sonic 2. One thing I find interesting is this game was actually made by both Japanese and American developers at the Sega Technical Institute, or STI, which was located in California. The head of STI was a man named Mark Cerny, who convinced Naka to work with his team after Naka quit Sega of Japan due to disagreements with the company. Sonic 2 had a complicated development. There were some cultural differences between the Japanese and American programmers in aspects such as work ethic. STI also had a lot of ideas for the sequel that didn't make the cut, like a time travel story or 5 whole zones that were axed because of memory limitations. And the developers only had 1 year to make the game, which does not sound very fun. But in the end, Sonic 2 was released, and it was another giant success for Sega. I first played the game in 2010 on the Sonic Mega Collection for the GameCube. I don't remember much from this playthrough, except that I liked it. I would replay it a couple times on the Wii Virtual Console, and then years later in 2017, I played the mobile port by Christian Whitehead and loved it. I don't have as much experience with this game as CD or 3 Knuckles, but I've always been a really big fan of Sonic 2, and let me explain why. But first, if you're enjoying the video, I would appreciate it if you could like and subscribe. It would really help me out. Thank you. The story in Sonic 2 is very simple. Dr. Eggman is back to capturing animals to power his robots, but this time he is also building a giant space station called the Death Egg. Wow, this guy is a massive narcissist. Who else makes a space station modeled directly after himself? Sonic rushes to stop Eggman again and saves this yellow fox along the way. Meet Miles Prower, a pun for miles per hour, which I appreciate as a fan of bad puns. He has the nickname Tails, which is what everyone calls him. Tails is Sonic's best friend and sidekick, the Robin to his Batman. He's a nice kid who looks up to Sonic and is really handy with technology. For some reason, Sonic has a plane called the Tornado, but it's mainly Tails who flies it. I always forget that Sonic actually owns it. Tails is a fun character with a cool design, but I can't say he's one of my personal favorite Sonic characters because I just like others more. Tails is a bit too timid for my liking, but he's a great addition to the cast. He runs after Sonic to join him in stopping Eggman and discovers along the way that he can actually fly. And that's the plot. The most obvious change to talk about in this game is Tails joins Sonic as either an AI companion, or he can be controlled by the second player, which is a really cool feature. I played alone for this review, so the AI Tails didn't do much besides get multiple hits on Dr. Eggman during the boss fights. Still, it's very impressive they were able to put 2 super speedy characters on screen together, even though Sonic outruns Tails a lot. You can also play as Sonic or Tails individually, which is what I usually do when I replay these games. In the original Sonic 2, when you use Tails, he plays identically to Sonic. I know he flies in when he respawns, but he can't use that ability when you play as him, which is a little disappointing, but oh well. There's also a versus mode where Sonic and Tails race each other through the level with split screens, but I played in single player, so I can't comment on this mode. Like CD, Sonic has access to the spin dash, but this version is much better. The charge feels almost instantaneous, and it's so satisfying to burst through stages with it. The sound effect is so crunchy. I love it. There's no super peel out, but I don't care because this version of the spin dash is the superior burst option. I use it all the time. It's a fantastic change, and it becomes a series staple after this. I would say the biggest difference between Sonic 2 and the previous games is its emphasis on speed. Almost every stage is now a roller coaster, a fast-paced platforming that makes for an exhilarating experience. You can see this in the levels that have a lot more slopes and loops than the previous games. It's like the devs realized Green Hill Zone was the most popular level from Sonic 1, so they structured the sequel around recreating that experience in almost every zone. There are still sections where you need to slow down, but the ratio is smartly more in favor of the speedy platforming this time. There's no stage in this game that's like Marble Zone, for example. Sonic 2 is actually so fast that it was the main game shown in a famous commercial for the Sega Genesis that bragged about it having blast processing. Whatever that means. Sonic and Tails still run through zones with multiple acts and fight Dr. Eggman at the end of them. However, this time each zone usually just has 2 acts, but in exchange, there are more zones than before. There's 11 total, nearly double the amount from Sonic 1. And I appreciate more variety in the levels, especially when they're this good. What makes the stages so great in Sonic 2 is the way they're designed. For example, Chemical Plant Zone is a great regular level. This stage is so fast, it's kind of breathtaking. I love exploring the level's different paths and racing to the end. Then we have a stage like Aquatic Ruin Zone. It's the game's water level, so it's gotta suck, right? Well, if you just hold forward the whole time, or miss the upper pathway, you'll eventually end up underwater, which is pretty slow. You're not there for long, but come on, who wants to be underwater in a Sonic game? However, if you're precise with your platforming and manage to stick to the upper path the whole time, you never have to touch the water in the game's water zone. That is an incredible way to reward good platforming. The whole game is intelligently designed like this, and it's why Sonic 2 is so revered. It has all the best features from Sonic 1, like the fast platforming and alternate routes, but it doesn't have the pacing issues that game had with some of its zones. Before we leave the topic of stages, I wanted to mention Casino Night Zone. From the title, you can tell the level is modeled after a casino, with pinball bumpers you can bounce off of, and a slot machine where you can earn rings. It's a very unique idea for a stage that works well with Sonic, and casino levels become a reoccurring trope after this. Special stages return, but this time you enter them for having 50 rings when you reach a checkpoint. Because every stage has multiple checkpoints, that means you have a lot more chances than before to obtain the Chaos Emeralds. In fact, you can get all of them in the very first zone, Emerald Hill, which is awesome, and it's what I did this playthrough. And it meant I could afford to play the game more recklessly, since I don't need to clear half the stages with 50 rings anymore. Which I did, to mix results, but hey, it was fun. There are now 7 Chaos Emeralds, meaning you need to clear 7 special stages to obtain them all. And I'm happy to say these are very fun. Sonic and Tails run through a 3D half-pipe and have to collect a set amount of rings to keep going. The rings sometimes have weird placements, and there are bombs to dodge that take out 10 rings if you get hit by them, so the stages can be a little challenging. But I think these are very fair and enjoyable since you get rewarded for reacting quickly. And collecting all 7 Chaos Emeralds gives you a reward besides the good ending for the first time. When you have 50 rings and jump, Sonic will transform into Super Sonic, who is faster, has a higher jump height, and is invincible, so he just destroys stages. He also looks really cool in the process. His running animation is him hovering over the ground. How do you not love that? Being Super Sonic consumes a ring every second, so this isn't a permanent upgrade, but it's still super broken. So broken that I barely use Super Sonic anymore, because while it's fun, I like the extra challenge of beating the game with regular Sonic, but still collecting all the Chaos Emeralds because it feels good. I don't know, don't judge me. I should mention that the Taxman port improved some features related to the special stages and Super Sonic. Previously, entering a special stage reset your rings to 0, which meant you had to grind for them if you went for every emerald in the first zone. Now you just keep your rings, which is a great quality of life feature. More importantly, before jumping with 50 rings would instantly activate the Supersonic transformation. Now you just have to jump and press the triangle button to enter the super form, which is much better because Supersonic has his own theme that is enjoyable, but I really don't want to listen to it in every zone. I know I said I would try to play these games as identically as possible to the originals, but these improvements are too good to pass up, and the Supersonic one makes the game harder for me, so I'm making an exception. Anyway, those are all the changes to the gameplay. As I'm sure you can tell, I think these were all for the better. The graphics are another improvement. Stages and backgrounds are more detailed than Sonic 1, especially the special stages that I know look better in the Taxman port, but even in the original game, they look great for 1992. And because it's a Sonic game, the soundtrack is superb. Every song is catchy and a delight to listen to. It's not on the same level as Sonic CD's Japanese soundtrack, but man, it's really good. My personal favorite tracks are Aquatic Ruin and Sky Chase. We've arrived at the endgame. We start off with Metropolis Zone, which for some reason is 3 acts, unlike every other level. And I have some small complaints with this zone. The enemy placement is pretty unfair. You get hit so much in this stage, even if you've played it countless times like I have. You won't die here, but let's just say Supersonic comes in clutch. I also didn't love Mystic Cave and Oil Ocean Zone with their enemy placements and gimmicks to throw in some small criticism for an otherwise amazing game. But after Metropolis, we reach the last 3 zones that are all just 1 act each. The first is Sky Chase Zone, which starts another tradition for the series with slow auto-scroller levels on the tornado. It's just 2 minutes here, and it makes sense as a combo for the storm, so I'm not going to complain, but it's a good bookmark for later games. Wing Fortress Zone has a heavy emphasis on platforming over a bottomless pit, but it's much easier than Metropolis, so it's kinda weird for me to think about it as the last regular level in the game. After defeating the boss, Robotnik escapes into space. Tails helps Sonic catch up in the tornado, and he holds on as Eggman flies into the Death Egg, the final zone. Like Sonic 1, you have no rings here, and I usually die a few times to the first boss, Eggman's evil robot, Silver Sonic. Not Metal Sonic, Silver Sonic. But after figuring out his pattern, he goes down. Sonic chases after Eggman, who somehow always outruns you, and he enters the Death Egg robot, the final boss. This is one of the harder final battles in the series, but it's not too bad. I beat him my first time here by just playing slow and only hitting him when I was sure his spike arms couldn't touch me. I know there's a way to get like 8 hits on him at the start of the fight, but whatever. After 12 hits, he goes down, and Sonic runs out as the Death Egg explodes. Tails notices this and rushes out to save Sonic. Unless you got the good ending like me, and Sonic just went super and didn't even need rescuing. But Tails is still there, so... awkward. Maybe the bad ending where Tails actually saves Sonic makes for a better story. Oh well, that was Sonic 2. This game is a classic. The devs fixed the biggest issues from Sonic 1 and fine-tuned the formula, creating an incredibly well-designed and fast platformer with a ton of replayability. Aside from some stages I'm not the biggest fan of, I don't have much to complain about. It's extremely hard to choose, but I think I like it slightly more than CD, even though I have more nostalgia for that game, but both are masterpieces in my opinion. Sonic 2 is an incredible sequel. It's 32 years old, and it still holds up because it's almost perfect. So we have one more game left in the trilogy. I'll see you next time for my review of Sonic 3 Knuckles. Take care.